Hey, welcome back. It has been a long time since I have done a full video of a draft season, and we are now back with WDC. Technically won the last time I played the WDC. However, I was not able to play the following season because the following season was only for people who had never won a championship before, and which I had won the season before. And so we're back for WDC. It's been a long time, and we are excited. So I was debating between doing a restriction like I normally do, and I considered a multitude of different ones. And I was thinking between mainly two, and I decided on doing the slow. And so the definition of slow, there could be a multitude of different things that we could use to define it. So for example, you could do it Pokemon that are 30 base speed or lower, Pokemon that are 40 base speed or lower, 50 base speed or lower, or 60 base speed or lower, and so on and so forth. But these are kind of the main reasons. So 30 base speed or lower, that is almost entirely impossible. Torkoal and Hatterene are pretty much the only good Pokemon that are under that speed. Most of the other Pokemon would have to be super incredibly terrible mons or non-fully evolved Pokemon. So similar with 40, like 40, you can get something like Bronzong, you get like Arboliva, you get a couple of other, Pokemon like Spiritomb, but for the most part, you miss a lot. And 50 definitely, I think, would have been doable. However, I ended up going with 60 or under base speed as my restriction. The reason why we have 60 base speed or under, you get to see we have some Pokemon like Swampert and Incineroar. You also get some Pokemon like Primarina and Farafrig and other really nice Pokemon that are really important to the speed tier. I think another big one is Sableye, which is I think 55 base speed, which is also really relevant in a team that is as slow as it is. And so with that, we can kind of go over my draft. So we start with, I decided to go with my first overall pick of Farafrig. So the basis of this is probably pretty straightforward. One of the big issues with the slow team is that you really want to be in Trick Room a lot of the time. And if you want to be in Trick Room, a way that your opponents can punish you for being in Trick Room is by just using priority moves. And so Farafrig was the first pick. For that exact reason. It's also generically a very powerful Mon. It can, has a fairly wide move pool. It's really bulky, and it can be really disruptive. So next up, I was planning on getting Torkoal to go with it. Torkoal, the main idea with it is I really wanted a powerful spread-based move on a high tier Mon. In addition to that, Sun with Chlorophyll Mons, there's a couple Chlorophyll Mons that you could draft with it, including like Vileplume, Blossom, that are under that speed threshold that in the Sun with Chlorophyll can actually outspeed a lot of relevant Pokemon. And so you could actually have a fast mode to go with it. And then also that same Chlorophyll Mon, if it was like Blossom, has After You, which could let Torkoal have like very fast eruptions. And in addition to having spread moves, having a fast mode, it also would give the ability to just be one of the slowest Pokemon in Trick Room, which is one, a lot of teams might have like a 30 base speed Pokemon, but pretty much no one's going to have a 20 base speed Pokemon. So I would be able to always underspeed their Pokemon in Trick Room, basically. So that's what I wanted. However, it was taken from me. So someone in the draft took Torkoal at that spot right before it. They actually drafted Gyarados, undid their pick, and then ended up getting Torkoal, which dramatically, I think, worsened my team comp overall. However, I still did want a strong spread move Pokemon, and so I decided to go with Primarina with powerful Hyper Voice. So the similar idea, is like I said, I just wanted a really strong spread move because I think that is important in these type of matchups, especially because if you have like a supporting Mon and that helps set up Trick Room, the spread moves are really impactful in that aspect. So now that we had Primarina, we decided to go with our next pick, which was Sableye. I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. Sableye is one of the more successful ways to get speed control outside of Trick Room in a team that is this so slow. So like obviously we could try to do Tailwind, but I don't think Tailwind is the most effective. when your team is as slow as my team is. However, you can do things like Quash, Prankster Quash with Sableye, which gives you immediate speed control. You could also do some Prankster Thunder Waves, which, though, Thunder Wave does have the same priority, or like -2 speed is basically the same as giving my team's Tailwind. Thunder Wave also gives the chance of paralysis, and also similarly, there are no Prankster Tailwind Mons at this speed tier. And so I went with this. It also gives me a Fake Out Mon, and generically just a nice disruptive threat, and good support Mon as well. So with that, we have 2 special attackers and a really strong support Mon, and we decided to finish up kind of our support suite and our typing with the Bronzong. So the reason I like Bronzong is that it is amazing typing with the Levitate and Heat Proof. Its 33 base speed is pretty impactful, and it also giving Levitate, I think, is really a powerful ability generically, especially when you normally have ground weakness. Other than that, Iron Defense Body Press stuff can be really relevant, and the start of my team, none of them are super bulky. Like Primarine is pretty bulky on the special side, but Bronzong is definitely very bulky on the physical side. I'm not sure if I really needed Bronzong entirely. My team is a little bit slacking on super slow Mons. Currently, my team, the slowest Pokemon is in the 50s, and typically 30 base speed is the ideal for a Trick Room sweeper. And so having this definitely helps with that. And also, I think just generically with any type chart, Bronzong is nice. And so the next pick I wanted to go with was my electric type. And I had a strong debate between Pincurchin and Eelektross. So Pincurchin was really, really nice at the speed tier. It has a 15 base speed, so would have covered my speed tiering that I lost with Torkoal. And in addition, it does technically have stronger damage with the electric typing, and gives me terrain control to deal with my opponent's terrain, which is really nice. In addition to that, it does get Sucker Punch for some priority. However, Eelektross is a lot more bulky. With its ability, it has no weakness. In addition to that, it has a lot more coverage. And so basically the question became, do I want better speed and better electric coverage, or better bulk, better ability defensively and synergistically, and a better coverage overall? And so I decided to go with Eelektross as my pick there. I think that there's some justification that Pincurchin is better, and I should go with Pincurchin. However, one of the big reasons I went with Eelektross is because I was kind of leaning to my next pick to be a very strong Earthquake Mon in Rhyperior. And so, though I think Pincurchin might be better on the team outside of the Rhyperior, I was very interested in Rhyperior specifically because I really wanted a very strong physical attacker. And this very strong physical attacker going with Earthquakes that can go with the Bronzong and the Eelektross is really nice. So actually being able to run the spread move Earthquake is really nice and very impactful. This Mon also with Solid Rock and Terrain can be really hard to deal with. Yeah, and it has a pretty respectable move pool. So continuing on with the next pick, we were debating between our grass type, and the grass type went between 2 options, and Arboliva and Hydrapple. So both these Mons are very, very similar. They have almost identical speed tier. They have almost identical special attack. Our Hydrapple has better physical defense. Arboliva has better special defense. Their move pools are pretty comparable. The big plus side in Arboliva is it gets Strength Sap. The big plus side in Hydrapple is it gets Draco Meteor. And both of them kind of have benefits and weaknesses on their typing. Hydrapple has the 4 times weakness to ice. Arboliva has a fighting weakness. Overall, I decided to go with Hydrapple because I thought it was a little bit more useful in certain aspects, namely, having a nice little fantasy core of Bronzong Primarina Hydrapple's nice. I think Regenerator is having a big relevant ability, and I think one of the big deciding factors between Hydrapple and Arboliva is the fact that I didn't really have any intention of using the grassy terrain set up by Arboliva, and if anything, I thought it was going to be a negative because I do think that there's a good chance I'm going to be running Earthquake on Rhyperior a reasonable amount. And so with that, I decided to go with Hydrapple. So next up, I was very interested in picking up a fighting mon. There are two really good fighting mons in Conkeldurr and Hariyama. And this was a massive debate I had between the two of them. So the big plus side of Conkeldurr is that Conkeldurr has priority Mach Punch, which does a very big chunk of damage with Guts or with Iron Fist. And it also just has a bit generically a higher attack stat. And so it was really, really appealing for that. However, Hariyama gets Fake Out, which is a massive deal when the team being this slow has a big reason to want to set up Trick Room. So the idea behind Fake Out specifically is that if I want to set up Trick Room without issue, I'm going to be in a position where I'm likely going to have two support-oriented mons out. And so Hariyama is a mon that can help set up Trick Room while having an offensive mon be on the field. And so I basically thought that was enough of a benefit that I was going to lead Hariyama over Conkeldurr. However, Hariyama got taken right before I was going to make my next pick. I probably would have picked this earlier if I knew which Pokemon I was going to want rather than wait this late in the draft. However, because I didn't know which one I wanted better, I ended up waiting and I ended up losing Hariyama and getting Conkeldurr. Like I said, it was really close. So I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing to lose it. It just means that Trick Room will be a little bit harder, or I need to do some smart pivoting in order to get Trick Room up if I want to. However, like I said, those big damage Mach Punches will be much appreciated, and the extra bulk and damage in general will be nice. Next up, I decided to go with Ariados. So the reason I went with Ariados here is that I needed to get a really low tier Pokemon, and because of some getting a lot of higher tier Pokemons in the Primarina, Conkeldurr, and Farafrig, and so the only one that I really cared too much to get here was the Ariados. So the Ariados is nice in that type-wise, it hits some types I don't have, hits some deals with some weaknesses I had. The big benefits it has for the most part is honestly just Rage Powder, and then Shadow Sneak and Sucker Punch for some priority damage, in addition to its Rage Powder for redirection. So generally, I don't know how likely it is I'm going to use it in any given week, but having access to Rage Powder does seem useful. Continuing on, we ended up getting one of the more important Pokemon that I saved for last because I was being very greedy and hoping that no one would take it, which was Camerupt. So Camerupt is one of the only fire types that I actually had access to. Basically, other than Torkoal, I was kind of forced to get Camerupt unless I wanted to get another S tier, which, like I said, I couldn't do it with Primarina and Farafrig. And so since I didn't get any other S tiers, it was basically non-fully evolved fire starters, Camerupt. So Camerupt is basically the only relevant fire type. I really wanted a fire type, and I think it does a reasonable work. It's not the bulkiest, but it does get Solid Rock and gets Eruption. That's generically a really powerful move. Gets Earth Power. Gets good. It has the ability to be a physical and special attacker. So definitely And then finally, I had my last pick, which was I only could get the lowest tier Pokemon. Nothing particularly looked that interesting to me, so I just went with Munchlax just because it's got reasonable bulk with an Eviolite, and it's one of the slowest Pokemons in the game. So if I really want to go a super slow Trick Room on, I can do it. But yeah. And so here is my team. So you can see I ended up getting a pretty good type chart, which I'm pretty happy with in that aspect. I ended up having, I'd say 3 really good physical attackers in Rhyperior, Conkeldurr, and Electros. I'd say, 3 pretty solid special attackers in Hydrapple, Primarina, and Ferafrig, and then a fair number of supportive mons. One of the big things you can see though is my speed tiering, though not fast, is pretty bad for how slow it is, because as you can see, I have only one Pokemon under 30 base speed in Munchlax, and I only have one like real Pokemon under base 40 speed, which is Bronzong. And so I will say that one of my big issues with the team comp is that my Trick Room mode is not as strong, and that entirely stemmed from me losing Torkoal, which would have definitely by itself made my Trick Room mode a lot more viable. But as of now, if I'm playing against anyone who has a strong Trick Room mode, I can't actually even Trick Room that well against them. And so my team is just kind of in this really awkward speed tier. And so I'm not super convinced that it's a great team. However, I do have some pretty bulky mons, some pretty big damage, and some reasonable support mons. And so hopefully I can put myself into positions to win. We shall see. Hopefully you enjoyed this team breakdown. Thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all for week 1.